Hi, welcome back to another edition of the Coach's Corner. With me, as always, Clayton Holford, and today we're going to be reviewing my Vikings against the Bears. Clayton, what are your thoughts from this game?
Well, Justin, we really highlighted this game last week on the show in talking about what the Bears could do, what the Vikings could do. I know you picked the Vikings to eke it out, and it ended up being a very close game right down to the wire. But as I highlighted, I said the keys for the Vikings to win ended up being what they didn't do, right? I said the Vikings have to get to Mitch early and just make him a little uncomfortable so that they can hop out and they're not playing catch up from behind because their game plan isn't to play 10 to 14 points down. It's to play like a 0 to 7 point game, ideally, and
Mm-hmm.
just beat you down the stretch, right? So they're trying to play catch up ball. Adversely, we were looking at the Bears. The Bears' strategy is to just come out early, keep doing the same game plan we've seen from the Bears the last few weeks, have a strong running game with David Montgomery, who's looking the most explosive we've ever seen him. The
Mm-hmm.
offensive line is playing good. Most importantly, Mitchell Trubisky is playing good. This is the most solid stretch of football we've seen him play. He's taking care of the ball. He's making smart decisions. His mechanics look good. He just looks well prepared, and he looks like he's ready to play the quarterback position at an NFL elite level. Elite is a strong term, but you know what I'm trying to get at. He's looking like a solid starter. So basically what happened is the Bears, they got out. Mitch got comfortable. They were moving the ball easy. The Vikings didn't have enough answers in time. It was more of a second half heroic try to come from behind comeback. Didn't really have any answers. You didn't see Adam Thielen get going. Justin Jefferson didn't get going until late. It was Irv Smith dropped a touchdown that they ended up having to settle for a field goal on that ended up coming back to bite them. So, it was more so the Vikings losing than the Bears outright winning because the Bears did present an opportunity. But this is kind of something we're seeing from this Bears team, in my opinion, that the Bears are playing consistently good enough football to be worrisome to any team. The defense is good, strong running game, as we always talk about. That style travels. What did you see?
Well, I think that first and foremost, hats off to the Bears. I just think that the big key of the game was when the Vikings, there were a couple, but the big one to me was when the Vikings went for it on fourth down in their own end, about 5 or so minutes left in the first half, because they ran it right into the teeth of that Bears defense, which has been good all year. Um, and they were, well, rejected, like, but then the second half, like 2 minute drill after that Cameron Dantzler pick, fourth down one, rather than handing the ball off, they tried a rollout pass, and like it's happened multiple times this year where Kirk Cousins does a rollout pass and they block everybody but one guy. One guy's chasing Kirk down, and he's mobile, but he's not mobile enough to get the right angle to still get a throw off. And I think that was a big scenario because that fourth down stop, I think, dictated what the call was going to be on the key one later in the game. I mean, they're both key plays on fourth down when you're going for it. But the one in the fourth quarter, I mean, you had the opportunity to keep the drive going, and a touchdown wins it for you. I think you're starting to kind of see the frustration as a team, because I think they know that they can be good. They haven't always, they're just not consistent. And I think Justin Jefferson finally, let it out a little bit. He had a little bit of a mic'd up moment, which I can't, well, I won't repeat, but, he was kind of like, in short, dang it, Kirk, throw the flag, because they were running a flag route. And I think that Justin Jefferson, because he's good at contested catches, felt like he had the corner beat, but instead he threw it behind. That was right before the Irv Smith drop that you were talking about. But the big thing that I don't get is why the Vikings haven't gotten Thielen more involved. And we've talked about this before. You don't really want to force feed a player, which you don't need to, but you feel like you would have enough plays designed to go, highly favorable matchups, because, you script up plays, that, generally speaking, this looks really good against what they like to run. This should be there. But if you don't, that's when quarterbacks go through their progressions. The guy that we thought it was going to go to, he's not open, so you go through your progressions. It just seems like Adam Thielen hasn't really been a factor in the offense recently. It's been a lot of Dalvin Cook, which, Dalvin Cook arguably is one of the better running backs in this league. But a lot of it has seemingly be going to Justin Jefferson, who is a great receiver in his own right. But I feel like the more balanced, they were more balanced with Diggs and Thielen than they have been with Jefferson and Thielen, which is it's kind of weird seeing it for me. But hey, another big week from Tyler Gronklin.
Yeah, no, like you said, to talk about the sprint out for just a second, give a quick lesson on what you need to see from a sprint out and why we call them offensively. Now, granted, I know I'm not an offensive play caller, but this is, a lower level simplified version of what a rollout is. We're trying to get an athlete outside the pocket or move the pocket if they're bringing heat, or we suspect heat, or we don't think we can block them straight up. We want to move the pocket and get my quarterback kind of on the move. It also kind of creates a little bit of a running threat too. It's like, okay, that's why you kind of see it in third and short situations where it's okay. Even if I don't have the best athlete in the world, I don't have to have Lamar Jackson to pick up 3 yards whenever my quarterback's at a dead sprint, right? So you've kind of got that leverage. However, more often than not, you're hoping that a defensive end either gets chipped inside and can't recover, or on a play action sprint out or like a boot to get him outside the pocket, you see him fall for the fake or just go inside. However, you don't want that defensive end whenever, because defensive ends are some of the best athletes in the entire National Football League. And Kirk Cousins is not one of the best athletes in the entire National Football League.
He's the best dad in the National Football League.
Well, you know what? He may not even be that. We don't know. That's a competition I wouldn't be willing to wager against Philip Rivers, because he's got 32 kids and he's had a lot of practice raising them. So you look at Kirk Cousins getting outside the pocket. If that defensive end isn't checked, okay, that doesn't allow him enough time to really get downhill and make a complete throw. So I don't love the sprint out calls of Kirk Cousins, because he's not a good enough athlete necessarily to really outrun a defensive end and get downhill. And what ends up happening is to create the space to get the throw off and allow the routes to develop. Sometimes you get quarterbacks, well, whenever the defensive end's crashing down, you come back and then you don't get a good drive through the ball. And that's why I don't love the rollout call or the sprint out call with Kirk Cousins necessarily, because, like I said, he's an average athlete, but he's not. I wouldn't trust him to beat that defensive end off the edge like that. So when you're going for it on fourth down, normally I'm an advocate or third and short of sprint outs, but just knowing what Kirk Cousins is and him not being the risk taker or the running threat, I don't love the call, even though I know it's a staple in the Gary Kubiak system.
For sure. But I think another big thing was I have a couple friends that are Bears fans. One of them is one of my old managers, and so we talk a lot of football. And one thing he and I both agreed on, which we don't agree on much, but on this, the Bears needed to get better on the offensive line. I think that they still can afford to do that, but now it almost seems like with the way they've been playing the last few weeks, is it less of a priority, or is that dangerous to look at it based off recency bias to say that, maybe this offseason you could focus on this, and that rather than the offensive line?
I'd say it's 100% recency bias. And because, I just mentioned this, to you and Ned whenever we were all talking earlier, but it's easy to put the blindfold up and miss your problems when you win. Winning heals all wounds. It truly does. There's no such thing as a bad win. Winning just makes you feel good. It gives you that warm fuzzy on the inside, right? So when you start winning, you start going, oh, Matt Nagy's not so bad. Bill Lazor's okay. Ryan Pace is an okay GM. You feel those things because you don't hate them because you're losing, because losing is maddening. It drives the screws loose in your head. You throw your marbles all over and you lose them. So to say that the Bears still don't need to address the line, you could if you really wanted to break that down, we could go into, okay, what looks were they getting? How healthy were the defensive linemen they were playing? Did they get pressure? Were teams daring Mitch to throw and just, trying to take away the run, or vice versa? Were they trying to take away the pass and just give him the run? What were they doing necessarily? So without having that in-depth breakdown, you can just kind of chalk it up to consistency on the offensive line because they've had a lot of shuffling and a lot of injuries. I think you're just kind of seeing them get more of a stable lineup in there. And I think you're seeing them kind of be healthier. And that chemistry goes a long way on the offensive line. You being an offensive line specialist, know that most of all. That chemistry helps. So, yeah, you're going to limp through the rest of the season, whether they make playoffs or just, get eliminated, whatever it may be. These are the guys that are going to get you there, and you got to go with it, and you got to hope for the best, fingers crossed. But at the end of the day, you got to address the weakness and say, this is where we were not good. And they have to shore up the interior line play. The guard positions have not been good for them all season.
Exactly. I don't think they've been really good since Long, Kyle Long, and it doesn't help that James Daniels is hurt either. He was a very highly touted player out of the University of Iowa, and a guy that maybe he some people thought he could have gone first round. They got him in the second round. I think it was a great value pick, but he just hasn't been healthy. I thought that their guard problem would be solved because you'd have your center as Whitehair or James Daniels. Whoever isn't playing center is going to be playing guard. Then you had Kyle Long. I'm like, that seems like a pretty, solid interior group. So they just have to, fix their tackles. Well, for there's a stretch of time where none of their offensive linemen were playing really all that great of football. And so I still think the number one priority should be to shore up the offensive line for whoever their quarterback is. And if Mitchell Trubisky continues to play like this, it looks like it, very well could be Mitchell Trubisky.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think ultimately this is what I think. I think there's enough holes on this roster that you look at it going into the offseason, we're nearing the end. It's time to look to the future and what ifs, because the Bears don't have a lock. They're playing a lot of scenarios right now.
Mm-hmm.
So right now we have to look at it and we have to say the only facts we know about this Bears team are they've got some holes offensively. We don't know if Allen Robinson's coming back, so we got to address the receiver position. Looks like Cole Kmet's going to be good at tight end position. They've got some depth there as well. So you say, okay, we need guard play. We need a right tackle because I think they need a left tackle because their right tackle has been, I think, the spotlight of this team. Interior guards, and you need more wide receivers other than Darnell Mooney if you don't bring back Allen Robinson.
Exactly.
But that leaves you looking at re-signing Mitch, or, whether it be a one-year deal, franchise tagging him, or just he's earned another shot with how he's rebounded from this benching and he's earned another shot. So I think that's where you go from this is you say, okay, we're going to commit to Mitch one more year and we're going to build this team. And you know what? If Mitch doesn't do good with them building up the holes on this team, guess what? That's fine. Next year's quarterback class, you grab a guy there or you grab a free agent. But whoever's playing quarterback is not going to take this Bears team to the Mecca, to the Holy Land, they're not going to get the Lombardi, the sacred trophy, if this team has as many holes as what it has now. So it doesn't matter who you got playing under center. You got to address some things going into next year.
Yeah, they're by no means the 85 Bears, but let us know what you think in the comment section below. Ask us a question. We'll answer it the next segment, I guess, of our next installment of the Coach's Corner. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, turn on notification bells, and thanks for joining us on the Coach's Corner.